So they put me on the ventilator, and I was having these dreams, and they were alternative lives, and they were so realistic. Um, it was just it's hard to explain. I can tell you about the dream, but you can't understand what it was like because it was so real. I mean, I was literally living alternative lives. And in the coma, in my dreams, not in real life, but in my dreams, I died several times. I'm talking like 15 times. I die, and in a dream, you can't die. So, like, you fall off a mountain or whatever, you're about to hit the ground, you wake up right before you die. Well, in a dream, it ain't, I mean, when you're in a coma, medically induced coma, it ain't like that. You hit the ground and boom, you're dead. And so, I'll get into that a little bit later in a different series because I, if you've ever watched that movie Inception, and they say, I don't remember what the ratio is, but they say something like 1 hour in real life is like 1 day in a dream. Well, that's the truth. That's the way it was. And I was on the ventilator for 22 days. So I lived a long time in these dreams, and I woke up and I felt aged, like mentally. And the I had a lot of PTSD from my dreams. Um, and one of my dreams, I had a real great friendship with this guy. He took me in. He gave me, medical care, took care of me, and he was a pastor, like a street pastor. And I remember going out and helping him, spread the word, spread the gospel about Jesus. And this guy was just an amazing person. Like, he had no flaws. And whenever I came out of the coma, I couldn't talk, couldn't move, anything like that for a couple of days. And so finally, when I started to get my voice back, I was asking my wife different questions. And one of the questions I asked her, I said, what about, and this drives me crazy because I can see this guy's face. I can remember every day that we hung out together, how he helped me. I can remember every aspect about this guy, but I can't remember his name. And so I'm going to call him Victor. And so I asked her, I said, is Victor okay? Does he know where I'm at? And she said, who? And I said, Victor. Victor, the guy that was helping me. And she's like, what do you mean? I was like, the guy that had the titanium ribs. And she's like, no, that wasn't real. There's no guy with titanium ribs. And when she told me that, I just broke down and started crying because I had such an amazing relationship with this guy. He was, a true friend. And so that was, a tough pill to swallow. But, so anyway, like I said, I'll get into all those dreams. And, it'll take several series per dream. But, so while I was on the ventilator, I was in the hospital for 3 days. Then they put me on the ventilator. That was August 16th. And so I kind of thought, that my vitals was kind of like declining, and then took a swing up, and then they got me off the ventilator. But it was like every day was a challenge. One day, there'd be just a glimmer of hope. Like, I don't know all these terms and meanings, but my wife told me like my vent would be better, or my PEEP would be better, or my gases would look better. And then that night, everything would come crashing back. And so every night, my wife would Zoom me. The hospital would provide a tablet for me, and then she would Zoom me. And this is bizarre. It's kind of interesting how God built us, because whenever I was ventilated, I had no idea I was ventilated, and I had no idea that we were Zooming. But when my wife would talk to me, no matter what I was doing, anywhere in my dream, I would look down and I'd be holding a tablet. and I could see my wife on that tablet in real time talking to me. And she'd say, "Hey, baby, it's me, just checking in on you." And the whole time, all through this coma, my big struggle through all these different lives that I lived, I was just trying to get back to my wife. And so I'm like, "Baby, where are you at? Tell me where you're at, because I need to come see you." And the devil would use these dreams, and he would never miss an opportunity. And he would let me kind of get attached to my wife in these zoomings that we were doing. And after a few minutes, then he would take and go off in a different direction. And he was trying to make me think that, my wife didn't love me anymore, or something happened to my kids. He's trying to give me all these reasons why I shouldn't continue to want to live. And so every night, she'd Zoom me, and she'd say, "Hey, baby, it's me." And she'd say, "My oldest daughter's here," and I'd see her. She'd pop in on the Zoom, and she'd say, "Hey, Daddy," and I'd be talking to them, but they couldn't hear me talking back to them. And so one night when they were Zooming me, the doctor called my wife and said, "Listen, his lung he just had a pneumothorax, and we need to do something about it immediately." Well, my mother-in-law is an RN, and so my wife, she didn't know what a pneumothorax was, and so she tells the doctor, "Hang on," and she runs next door to go talk to my mother-in-law and let the doctor explain to her what's happening. Well, she left my middle daughter there watching the Zoom, and they said, "Well, he had a pneumothorax," and my mother-in-law said, "That's a collapsed lung." And so they said, "We've got to get him stabilized. We've got to put a tube in immediately. There's all these different things that can happen. He could bleed out." So my wife said, "Do it." Well, so they come running into the room. The nurses and everybody come running into the room, and the Zoom is still going. And it kind of traumatized my daughter. And so she grabs, the tablet, and she's running, and she says, Mom, there's something going on." Well, then the nurses and stuff, they heard that. And so one of them hit mute on the tablet and turned it around so that way they couldn't see what was going on. And so they cut me and put a chest tube in. And I didn't feel it in my dream, but I could feel pain in my dreams, but I just didn't feel that. And so now I got a deflated lung, and my vitals are going up and down, and I had an AFib at one point. The cardiologist had to come in and give me something, and I think it was a beta blocker or something. I'm not sure, but she was able to get it settled out pretty easily. So throughout the time that I was on the ventilator, I had all these things going on, but to me, the outside world that was happening in real time, I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know that it was, I didn't know that I was in a coma. I didn't know that I was on the ventilator or anything like that. So, fast forward, things start to look up, and they said, this one doctor said, we're going to pull the chest tube out tomorrow, and we're going to give him a tracheotomy in about 2 days. And so, my wife's like, "Oh, great, that trach, I hear that's a good thing." And so she said, asked the doctor, said, "Well, will you be working tomorrow?" And the doctor said, "I don't even know. Let me check my schedule." So she said, "No, I won't be working, but this doctor will be working. He's a good doctor. You can trust him." And so the next day, that doctor came on, and my wife was talking to him, and she said, "Are you going to, pull a chest tube out today?" And he's like, "No, we don't want to pull the chest tube out while he's on the ventilator. That could cause it to deflate again." So going back, I had a chest tube, and it was like I guess like a 1/4-inch tube, and they left that in for 3 or 4 days, and it just my lung wouldn't reinflate. So they pulled that out, cut me again in the same spot. So I have like almost crosshairs on my ribs over here. I got a big circle, and then I got a line. And so then they fed the big tube in. And I think it was about 2 days my lung reinflated. And um, so then they said, no, we're not going to take his chest tube out while he's on the ventilator. That could cause more problems. And she said, okay, what about the trach? And he said, no, we don't want to do the trach unless we absolutely have to. And he's showing signs of improvement. We're going to try to do some breathing trials on him today. And so they turned down the what do you call it, the whatever it knocks you out, sedation. And I was trying to push all that stuff out of my mouth with my tongue, and they said no, that's not good. So they went back up, and then the next I think they waited like 4 or 6 hours, and they tried it again, and I was able to I opened my eyes, but I was still dreaming. I was still in the coma. My wife showed me a video of it, and I told her, I said, that right there, the lights are on, but nobody's home. And she said, well, you can see you're following the nurse with your eyes. And I said, all that is just, it's natural instinct, I guess. It's, I don't know what it is, but I wasn't awake for that. I wasn't coherent for that. But the good thing was I, passed my breathing trials. So the next day, September the 4th, that was my wife's birthday. And all I remember is I was in a dream, and I hear my wife come on, and she says, honey, open your eyes. Open your eyes for me. And I was thinking in my dream, like, whoa, what? All I have to do is open my eyes and I get to see you? And so I opened my eyes, and then there she was on the Zoom in front of me. And it was just the most, beautiful thing I ever saw, getting to see my wife and my kids. And they were all just so ecstatic to see me. And then all of a sudden, the room fills up with all these nurses, and everybody's, taking selfies with me and everything, and everybody's cheering and clapping. And I mean, it was a pretty exciting moment, but I still didn't have any idea what was going on. In my mind, it was still August the 17th. I was thinking that the procedure that they did on me to help me breathe better actually gave me like a what do you call it, a stroke or something, because I couldn't talk, I couldn't lift my arms, I couldn't move my legs. And so in my mind, I was thinking, oh my God, now I'm an invalid and my wife's going to have to take care of me for the rest of her life. I'm just going to be a huge burden on her. And she was talking to me, and she's telling me, she says, you know what day it is? Today's my birthday. And in my head, I remember she and I having this whole conversation, but she has it on video, and I wasn't saying anything, and which really blew my mind, because I genuinely in my head remember just telling her, baby, I'm so sorry I didn't get you anything for your birthday. I feel terrible. I should have got something for you before I went in the hospital. But I didn't say any of that. I couldn't say anything at all. And so her and my daughters for the next few hours was just sitting there talking to me, and my little boy popped up and he was talking to me. And they'd say, well, make a smiley face. And, I'd make a smiley face, and they'd just start giggling. And God, did my heart so good just to hear them giggling. And they'd tell me to smile and open my eyes, and and I was doing all this, and it just made them so happy. And so that was September the 4th, the first day that I was off the ventilator. And my wife got to come see me on September the 5th, because when they was extubating me, I had to have 3 positive COVID tests before my wife could come in the room. And the only thing at all that I remember about the extubating process is this one nurse said, sir, we got to give you a COVID test. And she's trying to stick that up my nose. And I was moving my head as much as I could and struggling, saying no. And it was because in one of my dreams, I'd been killed a similar way. Someone posing as a nurse. And they did something and it killed me. And I was like, I ain't falling for that again. And so I was sitting there struggling, and that lady goes, "Sir, listen to me. If you want to see your wife again, you have to let me give you this test." And so, my eyes just welled up with tears, and I thought, well, if I die, I die, but I'm willing to do whatever I got to do to see my wife again. And so she gave me 3 COVID tests at once, which was very smart on her part because I had to have 3 positive tests before my wife could come see me. So instead of doing them one each day, she did them all at once. So the next day, September the 5th, my wife came to see me in the hospital, and man, that was the greatest day of my life. Just to see her come through those doors and come give me a big hug, because I went through hell when I was in that coma, just trying to get to her. That's all I wanted was my wife. But God blessed me with a second chance. And so I got to see her. And I thank God every day for that. I thank God every day for the opportunity just to wake up. Because it tells us in the Bible that we're not promised tomorrow. And so going through something like that it's really changed me and my family. And when we get home in the evenings, we put the electronics away. We spend time with each other. And so I can't tell you how amazing it felt to get to see my wife and get that big hug. And then she was telling me, that no, I wasn't, that I didn't have a stroke. I couldn't talk, so I couldn't ask her that, but she was just telling me over and over, explaining to me what was going on, that I'd been on the ventilator for 22 days, and now it was, September, and that I survived, and I don't have COVID anymore, and now I'm on the mend, and we just got to get me better. And so while I was sorry. So while I was on the ventilator, about, I don't know, 2/3 of the way through it, I guess, they told my wife, they said, November the 7th was the last, August the 27th was the last time that I tested positive. And they woke me on September the 4th. So about that time, they told my wife, they said, we're not fighting COVID anymore. We're fighting an infection. And I had ran really high fever and things like that. They had to put ice on me to chill me out. And so they said, we're fighting an infection, but we don't know where it is. So we're just going to give him broad spectrum antibiotics and things like that. And so they was just pumping me full of antibiotics. And so then, I was in the ICU.